Hey guys, Husheng here. Welcome to another Husheng Tutorials video. In this guide, we're going to be looking at some example replays from the guide I did yesterday. So some hyper aggressive TvZ examples. So here you can see we have our Hellion Liberator harass going on. Getting a couple drones here, but not worrying about, trying to get a lot of damage. We're just trying to be a little bit annoying. In this particular game, I left my Hellions at home just to show you guys you don't really need to get harass damage done. So I mean, you guys can easily do this build without the harass if your multitask is not too strong yet. So we're doing our swaps, getting our 3 racks down. And then this is basically where you want to be stopping your SCVs. You can see here I'm not going, too much over 16. And then we're going to grab these extra racks and just start pumping out tons and tons of units, which is much more different than you would do if you were going to play a macro build. So if you're going to play a macro build, you would delay these racks a lot more. I'll probably use some guides on macro play in the near future. So this is a big difference from normal passive play. But anyways, we're making quite a few marine tank here. Got our Hellions on the way. We're probably going to wait for about 2 tanks and then do our push. But in the meantime, we can just kind of rotate around here a little bit. Oh, I'm actually moving out quite a bit earlier than I have been. Make sure you don't forget your combat. It's a good check to make sure you start this after about 2 or 3 tanks. And what I wanted to try this game was just using this Liberator in the push. So I think it's interesting. If you do manage to keep it alive, it's pretty helpful actually, especially against the queens. And what you're going to notice in all of these replays that I'm going to show you guys is I'm going to take my time quite a bit. You could probably even take more time than this, but don't rush on creep and siege your tank like up here, because if you do that, you're easily going to get jumped on by a ton of Ling and possibly some Banes. But if you do it this way and you just pressure with your Lings and your Hellions and try to stay at the edge of creep, then you're gonna have much more success. You can see here I'm kind of like baiting him into my tank fire and then I'm backing up. Maybe we'll talk about that a little more tomorrow, where we'll discuss the micro of this push. But back at home we have all 5 barracks pumping out units. Actually, these reactors are still building a little bit, but we're pumping out of the first 3. We've got our tanks continuously pumping out. Got our medevacs on the way. And 1-1 is just about complete. Now, keep in mind that this push doesn't have to totally kill your opponent. You can always regroup later on. So if this does fail, and actually one of the replays I'll show you guys later does have me failing the initial push and still winning. So just keep that in mind. You're just trying to keep the aggression on them and force a lot of units. Try to keep them away from Banelings if you can. Now I'm not sure what this guy messed up. Maybe making these Banelings, but I think the game was already over at that point. So yeah, a good first example. He is making Banelings now somewhere, but yeah, you can catch a lot of people off guard before they're ready to commit to those units. And even if he had committed in this position, his Baneling speed is only, just about to finish now. So those would have all been super slow Banelings, and you can target fire those with your tanks, which we'll be looking at tomorrow, some of that more advanced micro. But okay, let's jump over to example number 2. Now this is another game against a Master 1. So I mean, these are not low level players, because I know you guys are going to see these guys are noobs, and I would never say that about these players, but I know you guys are, because this guy also doesn't make any Banelings, and I think you guys would be surprised how few of these people I'm playing against are making Banelings, and it's just because of the tempo. Like, we're getting here early enough that they're not going to have the upgrades they want to actually commit to Banelings, and they're probably not used to this type of push either, where you're so aggressive and they're trying to not spend their money on Banes. So let's fast forward till the transition. If you guys want to learn the Hellion Liberator build, I do have a guide on that specifically, which I've been saying. So check that one out if you're interested. But now we have our setup. We've got our 3 barracks ready to pump out Marines. We've got our factory going, and soon we'll have some medevacs as well. And same kind of thing here. We're just pausing at about 16 on the mineral line. I'm over a little bit. I think I'm over a little bit because I keep making these eBays, and then I see 16. I'm like, okay, now I'm at 16, but I guess I can stop at like 13 or something so that these eBay guys finish saturating my mineral line, and then we'll have a little more marine for the push. But this is still plenty strong. Another thing you're going to notice me doing is not just queuing these marines up randomly. I'm going to try to make exactly 5 each round, because that's going to make this quite a bit cleaner than if you're just like, you know, pressing A every once in a while. And it's also going to mean you can forget about making marines until this progress bar is done, which means if you start floating minerals and you've already queued marines and you've already queued tanks, you will know to build your depots. So if you're one of those people who's like just queuing up marines you know, all over the place, try this method and see if your supply depot timing improves. Okay, cool. So we have 1 tank. We're going to have a second one in a little bit. And this is when we're going to want to do our move out. Now I did build a little bit of a depot wall over here. I think this is going to help out a little bit if your opponent decides to go for lots of ling counters, make it a little bit less annoying for you. So you can throw these down if you want, but definitely not super necessary. So now we have our 2 tanks. If I come back here, you guys can see I'm just consistently making units, trying to keep them ordered 5 at a time, exactly, almost exactly. Whoops. Adding on our reactors. And one check I've been doing is right after I make 3 tanks, I've been starting up my combat shield. So if you guys forget that upgrade often with this build, you can just make it right after 3 tanks. Or 2 tanks. You might even be able to afford it after 2. But definitely make sure you have it at least by when you start the 3rd tank. Okay, so we come in here. You can see I'm sieging pretty far away. Probably I could go up to here would be fine, but you don't want to be running on creep and sieging over here because it's much too close, and if they do have a lot of units like this guy, then they can easily jump on you if you move too fast. So take your time once you get to creep. Don't rush on here. Honestly, even this is probably a little too aggressive by me. I can just move 1 at a time, and that would be totally fine. But if I go to the production tab here, you'll see that my 1-1 is just about to complete. And so when he does fight me here, I have a huge advantage with these fast 1-1 upgrades, which is one of the big benefits of this build, is that, you have 1-1 upgrades for these fights and they don't. Now they can have 1-1 upgrades actually. It is possible for them to have 1-1 upgrades, but what is not possible is for them to have baneling speed and 1-1 upgrades. They can't really have both by now. Unless they're like really cutting workers, in which case you don't really have to worry about it. So they can only have one or the other, which gives you some sort of advantage in these fights. Whether it's the 1-1 or whether it's the lack of baneling speed, so you can use your tanks to target fire. So we do break through him there because of the 1-1. And from here, he's just going to have a really hard time, accumulating some Ling Banes, so he GG's out. And again, this guy's M1, so I know you guys are going to be like, this guy's floating 10k. But yeah, this is just very common at the M1 level. You guys would be super surprised. If you just put on a ton of pressure, like with this type of build, people just totally crumble, right? It's actually very difficult to deal with aggressive builds like this. So try it out, see how it goes. I do have one more replay for you guys, which is probably the lowest player I played. I think he's Master 3. But this is an interesting game because this guy is quite a bit more aggressive, and he plays a bit more of a weird style. It's not exactly a standard game. So I think you guys will benefit from this one. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any replays from really strong players. I did like 40 games, honestly. And I played a couple 5.2, 5.5k Zergs. but I think like 70 or 80% of my games were TVT and TVP. So I wasn't able to get too many, and the GMs that I did play just cheese me. So maybe we'll do some guys on cheese. Maybe you guys are getting cheesed way more often than normal play, but yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Like roach rushes and nidus worms and just all sorts of crazy shit. So I wasn't able to get any replays against some GMs, but this one is definitely super educational. Let's go back a sec actually, because I want to talk about this Ling run by. So our first two Hellions are moving out, and let's go watch these guys. So we're moving out. You should always move out with your first two Hellions, because if they do any sort of cheese build, you're not going to scout it without these. And if they counterattack you before, during this period, I should say, then you're going to have these extra two Hellions, so you should easily be able to hold. So very important to send these guys out to scout. Let's go to my vision. And when these Hellions come in here, what you're going to see is, first of all, there's no drones, which is a little bit suspicious. There should probably be a couple over here. And there should probably be some queens defending your Hellions. So if you come in here and there's no drones, you should instantly be like, oh, okay, so something fishy might be aloof. So come in here, no drones. And then I also see some Lings pop out of here, which is additionally suspicious. Like, he could be making a couple sets of Lings for Hellion defense, and no drones. So now I'm really suspicious. So what I did was I shifted these around. And what we would be looking for here is maybe some sort of like roach push, or maybe just a huge flood of Lings. And then you'll also see me, actually I didn't go to my cam, but I also jumped back here earlier, and I just made sure that these Hellions were hotkeyed as soon as I saw no drones here. So that way, if he does come in, we're easily able to micro these guys. And these should be on a separate key from the first two Hellions, to be clear. If you have them on the same key, what will happen is you'll A-move this group, and then this group will also get A-moved, which means if a stream of Lings comes in, they're going to auto-target the Lings, and so they're going to get surrounded and killed. So make sure they're on a separate group. You can see I have two here. And then what you want to do is always come back to the ramp. So I guess in this particular game, we can see that no more Lings are coming, but you want to make it a habit to always come up to your ramp, because if he is making a lot more Lings and you try to go over here, then it's very easy to get surrounded. And so you can lose the game pretty quickly like that. In this example though, this guy didn't commit a whole ton, it's just like 10 Lings. So it doesn't actually matter here. You could go down here, but the habit is good. And then, I mean, if you get into this position, this little choke point, and you can kill like 100 Lings. It doesn't really matter how many he sends at you, so that's the ideal location for sure. Now, he ran this way. I did rotate over here because I wanted to see if there was some more Ling or some Banes or something weird. But there was nothing, so now I'm moving out, doing our normal Hellion Liberator push. Transitioning into the stim quickly. Throwing down our extra two racks, and then our E-bays really quickly after that. And now, in this phase of the game, your main goal is to keep these Hellions alive and to keep this creep spread back as much as you possibly can, without losing them. And maybe harass a little bit, get some scouting info. Like in this particular game, we saw no workers over here just a second ago, again. And so that's also pretty suspicious. And our Liberator gets some pretty key info. It sees that there's a layer complete. And so this info tells us that he's going for some type of really fast tech. Now this could be a lot of things. This could be a Nidus Worm, or a Mutalisk, or a Spire. It could also be some weird stuff like Hydra, I suppose, or like a Roach speed push. So there's quite a few options, but if you do see something like this, like I do in a second, a bunch of Lings, then it's most likely Mutalisk. Especially with double gas, like this guy. Maybe it could be like a Ling Queen Nidus with just one gas, but with two gas and this many Lings, then it's almost 100% that it's Mutalisk. So I'm just going to react like it's Mutas. If it's anything else, then it's not really a big deal. Like, I'm not too worried about it. Mutalisk are the one thing that, you know, if I don't get turrets, then I'm actually kind of in trouble. So we kill these lings for free. You definitely shouldn't be making this many lings against Hellions if you're a Zerg player. In fact, you shouldn't make any lings against Hellions. You should just be using queens. So that's a mistake from this guy. But I mean, if you don't punish this guy with your Hellions, he's going to have quite a few lings for our push. So might as well kill those. And you can see that I'm grabbing this kind of triangle setup for the turrets. You want to make sure that your the turrets in your mineral line are on the edges so that you can protect your gases as much as possible. And then you want one more by the production, which you don't need this turret early on because you're going to have quite a few Marines, but as soon as you move out, this turret is actually very, very handy at protecting your, you know, rally point of Marines and tanks in case he decides to camp it. So make sure you grab this turret as well. Very, very handy. And since we kept these Hellions alive, you can actually move the CC over quite a bit earlier than normal. If you do end up losing these Hellions, you actually got to wait till stim. And you have to wait till you have quite a few Marines, because if you move out here with, like, what do we have? 3 Marines and 1 tank and no Hellions, you're gonna die if they come in with a bunch of lings. And so that's basically GG. You don't have any full wall yet. So be really, really careful moving the CC if you lose your Hellions, but since we preserve them, and that's also the main reason we preserve them, is so that we can, you know, move out here safely. Okay, so 1-1's on the way. We got combat shield after our 2nd or 3rd tank. And we're going to be moving out for our push pretty soon. Now we know he's going muta, like I said earlier. I'm kind of wondering whether or not here yet. Usually they would be here by now, but I'm going to start up one more turret over here, and I'm just going to wait a little bit longer than normal so that I have a decent amount of Marines to move out. So here he comes in with the muta. I just cancel the turret, no big deal. And now we have you know, a pretty good setup. We know where the mutas are, and we can start going for our push. Now we probably could have waited a little bit longer, to be honest, but I wanted to get this started, force him to keep these muta back at home. But yeah, he's a little bit annoying for sure. More than he should have been able to if I just waited a little more patiently. So yeah, even here, I think I'm moving out a little too early for what he's doing, and he's pretty committed to mutiling early on, and so he doesn't really have a lot of drones or anything like that. So there's not a huge reason for me to be out, you know, at his base already in this particular case. But we do start an engagement, and unfortunately my Marines are at the front. I think this would have went okay if our Marines were back here. But since they were at the front, he's able to kill the Marines first, and then eventually kill my tank and Hellbats. But this is actually a great game to show you guys that, you know, even if your first push gets stopped, a lot of the times that's happening because they're so low on workers. And so even if you get held in the first push, it's totally fine in a lot of these cases to just regroup. Maybe wait a little longer than me again. I'm so aggressive here. But you can just regroup and go for a push in a little bit. And oftentimes, like this game, this guy just doesn't quite have enough to hold off. So here again, I was a little bit over aggressive. We have to pick up here and boost away and regroup, which I should have done probably the first time. But no big deal. We still got tons and tons of Marines on the way because of these early 5 racks. And so we're gonna be fine. Oh, I forgot to mention, I did build an armory this game because I knew he was going muta, so that we could get these Thors out. But honestly, it's probably okay to just go with Marine Tank medevac anyways, but I think the Thor's a nice addition. The only downside with the Thor is that you kind of got to split like a god if they do go for Banes. So here you can see the Bane's all finished, and so I do have to split here, but we'll talk about some of this micro tomorrow. It's not as hard as it looks, actually. I'll show you guys how to do it properly. With some practice, you guys can be microing like Mario too. So stim forward, all his Banes are gone, we can just keep pushing here. Now this time I'm running forward. I don't want to let him get any Banes. So my goal here is to see if he's making some Banes and then pull back. Now he does get quite a bit of Lings here, but I actually think this is fine because at least he's not making the Banes here. But maybe again I should be a little more patient here. But it works out pretty good. Now before you guys post that I'm Manor Muling this guy, these are healing the Thor, okay? So I'm not guilty. Again, we're going to push forward and just make sure he's not going to make too many Banes. He does get a couple here, but he makes a little bit of a critical mistake right here. He A moves a little bit too close to the Thors, and so they go for the Thors instead, which was really, really awesome for us. So we traded, a little better than we should have, but I mean, we have a lot of bio on the way. I'm sure we would have won anyways. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed these replays. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any against like some super high GMs, but yeah, I think these are instructive nonetheless. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Like the video, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you in the next one.